Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. How's it going? My name is Francie, and I am hosting today's episode. And I hope you are doing well. Thanks for plugging in with us today here on the Out of Spec podcast, where we talk about all things EV from our own experience on the Out of Spec team with a lot of different EVs that we get to drive to everyday owners of electric vehicles to experts in the industry and more. There's a lot that we talk about here, which is great because there's a lot to talk about in this industry, a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of decisions to be made, and we are watching them closely. So today we're discussing some of the recent happenings that might be surprising to some, that might be expected to others, might be, hey, that's no big deal to the rest of you, but let's talk about it. Major automakers like Cadillac and Mercedes and even Volkswagen are dialing back their electric vehicle ambitions. There might be some others too along that. What's causing this shift and what does it mean for the future of EVs? Let's plug in. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. A number of manufacturers have already set very ambitious goals for ending their combustion car sales or production and totally going electric. For instance, brands like Volvo announced as early as 2019 that they would be only selling EVs and plug-in hybrids, so electric and electrified options, aiming for pure EV sales by the year 2030, 2024. So that's 6 years from now. Audi and other Volkswagen Group brands have also set similar targets, with Audi planning to phase out combustion engines by 2033 and Jaguar Land Rover by 2025. Not so sure about that. Have really not seen that many EVs from that company. And this wave of commitments, also along with regulation all over the globe, have really signaled a strong, not only regulatory shift, environmental shift, but strong industry shift towards electrification when it comes to auto manufacturers. But of course, totally new industry, totally new technology for many, and not all goes as planned. So that's normal in the car world, of course, but especially when you're dealing with a new kind of vehicle, electric. So let's start with Cadillac. In January 2021, Cadillac, which is a General Motors brand, announced that they have a bold commitment to sell only electric vehicles from 2030 onwards. So Rory Harvey was the then vice president of Cadillac, said, "We will be leaving this decade as an EV brand." Fast forward to a recent event that happened this year in Detroit, Michigan, and the story does seem to be changing a little bit. So Cadillac executives appear to be backtracking, or at least a little bit hesitant on this promise. So John Roth, Cadillac's current global vice president, emphasized that there is a need for them to listen to the customer. Is that new? Definitely don't think so, but perhaps they mean listening to a customer that is being introduced to a new product, maybe listening to the market as a whole. He hinted at having more of a flexible approach going forward, saying that they are still on strategy of offering an all EV portfolio by the end of the decade, but they're going to listen to the customer and let them be their guide. That makes sense, but I feel like it's also a little bit of a euphemism for, okay, well, we're just really seeing how these EVs sell to our market, to the market out there, and how attractive they are. We know that Cadillacs are a bit more of that luxury price. So that is already an obstacle with high sales. Cadillac's current electric offering in the US is limited to the Lyriq right now, which has an EPA estimated range of over 300 miles, and it starts at around $57,000. Cadillac sold only 9,154 of these in the year of 2023 in the US specifically. And of course, all of the EVs sold were the Lyriq. GM does have a goal, GM as a whole has a goal of selling 400,000 EVs between 2022 and mid 2024. So that's kind of now. So it's increasingly looking like that's out of reach, that it was a lofty goal and not one that they are going to reach. Of course, we're going to see the Cadillac IQ, that's the Escalade, and the Celestiq from Cadillac looking into the future, Perhaps now they are going to plan to invest more in the plug-in hybrid area to bridge the gap, as some might say. But I want to also pose that to you a little bit later, our thoughts on plug-in hybrids and going from electric to hybrid, the in between there. So the last plug-in hybrid that GM offered was in 2019. It was the Chevy Volt. We see those all around. Cadillac, GM, they're not the only ones. Let's talk about Mercedes-Benz. Earlier this year, Mercedes also backed away from their plan to sell only electric vehicles after the year 2030. And at a recent shareholder meeting, they acknowledged that the transformation to all electric will take longer than initially expected. I'm not surprised there because all of the timelines in the electric space seem to have a goal of being short and they quickly get much longer. Additionally, insiders have reported that Mercedes recently canceled their work on the MB.EA large platform, which is a move driven perhaps by disappointing sales figures for the current, again, luxury electric cars. This is a certain segment that might have a harder time selling these. They're not very affordable, and there are way better prices, and there's also great value for lesser prices on the market. So this platform, the MB.EA large platform, was intended to replace their EVA2 electric vehicle platform, which underpins the EQE and EQS models that we have seen as a team here before. I personally like how they look and thought it was a nice drive. You know, if you are a Mercedes, I think like brand loyalty, you could easily embrace an electric Mercedes into your life, personally, from what I know of Mercedes drivers. They also offer a broad range of electric models in the US compared to Cadillac, for instance, including the EQE, the EQS sedans, like I said, and they have SUV counterparts. So they have the size range, and the prices do go from like $74,000 to $105,000, with the maximum EPA ranges being between 300 and 350 miles. Mercedes sold 40,458 electric vehicles in the US in 2023, which was a record for the company, but maybe not enough to sustain their initial ambitious plans. And if you compare that to Cadillac, obviously they're doing a lot better in terms of their electric vehicle sales. Also, okay, let's talk about Volkswagen. They also seem to be facing some challenges. They recently now announced a delay in the US launch of their ID.7 sedan and wagon, and they cited that there were higher than expected demands in Germany and then significant growth in the US and SUV market. So, is that a little bit contradictory? There seems to be a market for it, but they're not coming. They also hinted at a renewed, well, they might be coming, but it's delayed. Volkswagen has also hinted at a renewed focus on the plug-in hybrid segment, as well as their EV sales have slowed a little bit, particularly in struggling markets like China. So if we take a global lens here, and they even scrapped plans for a €2 billion EV factory in Germany, opting instead to upgrade existing assembly lines. I think that is okay to redistribute the funds, especially when there are existing assembly lines that could get more efficient. I don't know. So for comparison, Tesla's Giga Berlin factory was built a few years ago, and it cost twice as much as that €2 billion. Just to put it a little bit into perspective of these manufacturing EV plants, the ones that have been standing and producing for a while, and then those that are kind of either getting up and running or automakers are making the budget to get them up and running. Of course, with this news from Volkswagen and the ID.7, although they say it's just a delay, they didn't give us a timeline for when it would be available, and I'm worried what this means for the VW ID Buzz. If you have been listening to the Autospec podcast, you know that I actually really like the VW ID Buzz. It's like the VW bus from the 60s turned electric, and it's not necessarily about the range or the efficiency, but rather the lifestyle that brings. And when I have traveled in Europe, I was in France for 2 weeks earlier this year, I saw a couple of these. Oh, and it just made me so excited. One was used as like a work van. It was white. It had the windows whited out like a classic Chevy Astro work van. That was interesting. And then I also saw like the beautiful colors that they have and those trims driving around in the French countryside. So I think that these would be great on the road. I know that they're going to be an expensive option for sure, but I would love to at least have my dream potentially be able to come true by having the VW ID Buzzes come to the North American market. So what's next for the EV industry? What's driving these shifts? High costs, infrastructure challenges, and consumer hesitancy seem to be the key factors. As Cadillac, Mercedes, and Volkswagen adjust their strategy, it is clear that the path to a fully electric future is complex and uncertain. That's really nothing new. It's just we're seeing how automakers are responding to that. Is it investing more into specific aspects of their business model? Is it delaying plans? We've seen this before with whole battery manufacturing plants, with production lines, with whole lines of EVs. You got to pivot sometimes. But we kind of just wanted to cover this because we saw a couple of automakers make similar announcements, similar decisions, hinted at similar different strategies that are saying, yeah, we said we're going all electric by that date, and we're still, considering our options. What do you think, listener, is the biggest hurdle to widespread EV adoption, right? If they were selling these like crazy, hopefully they'd be running out of inventory and having to figure out how to make those manufacturing production assembly lines more efficient, how to make battery manufacturing more efficient. Some markets have done that a lot better than the North American market, than even the European market. We're still growing. Is it cost? Is it infrastructure? Is it something else entirely? And then a real big question I want to ask is, there's kind of the pivot from, okay, fully electrified to plug-in hybrid or hybrid. What do you think about automakers potentially relying more on plug-in hybrids during this transition period? Is it a step forward? Is it a step back? Is it standing still? I'm not really sure. I think a lot of people that I talk to that say, hey, I would like to go electric, but I'm just not sure it could take me as far as I want to go. Of course, I tell them about all the road trips that we do and a lot of our listeners do and how it is completely possible. But they're like, I think, while I wait for that to get better, I'll do a plug-in hybrid or I'll do a hybrid. I don't know. I think I'm kind of torn because if someone needs the range and there are plug-in hybrids that really do use the EV, the electric aspect of the vehicle in a way that is more electric, it's very efficient, it burns less diesel or gas, then that sounds like it's a solution to me. But is this where manufacturers really should be putting their time and energy and resources into plug-in hybrids? If maybe that isn't necessarily super popular, one, or if we're going electric, but I guess it might be a step forward. If you're taking a step completely away from combustion and going half electric, half combustion with a hybrid, I guess that's a step closer to electric. I think I could see it a couple different ways. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments. So that's all for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Out of Spec podcast. If you enjoyed this discussion, this coverage, definitely subscribe, share the videos out, like it, let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your mind on the future. Thanks for plugging in with us. It is Francie signing off. Drive safe, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. See you on the next episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Bye.